We're going to jump right into our featured speaker, Sina Demsash, right? Sina is currently continuing her education as full-time student at Pepperdine University, fulfilling the practicum courses and clinical hours required for a marriage and family therapy license. Upon completing this phase of her studies and obtaining her license, she plans to provide mental health services as a private psychotherapy practitioner. She also works as a client service manager, managing a caseload of adults with developmental and learning disabilities. Her focus ranges from advocacy for services and entitlements to assessing clients, determining clinical and programmatical goals, and evaluating treatment as needed. And she's located in the West Coast. So Sina, come on up.
Well, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Some of you, if not nearly all of you, do not know who's standing before you giving a speech. By the end of my presentation, my hope is collectively we come to understand our commonalities, how we are more alike than we are unalike, to highlight some facts that make us relatable. Number one, we all have a story. We come from somewhere, we have challenges, victories, and they shape us into who we are. Number two, we all understand the emotion of fear and how it can drive us apart, especially when we don't understand what we're afraid of. And number three, as humans, we're all valuable under his eye, no matter what age, sex, race, accolades, spiritual, physical, or mental capacity. So I want to first start by thanking you for giving me a listening heart, the opportunity and the platform to tell you the story of three valuable individuals that are dear to me and how their story ignited my purpose, how their story became also my story. And I also want to commend every single one of you that's here today, because we're here to talk about a subject that's not easy, especially in our community. So I sit here to be transparent, honest, and vulnerable. And I invite you all to do the same because this is a safe place. My name is Sina Demsash. I was born in Ethiopia to a single mother out of wedlock, and I was raised by two of the most beautiful human beings that I know here on earth, my grandparents. In 1997, I migrated to the US, specifically Seattle, Washington. Forwarding to today, I am currently pursuing a marriage and family therapy license at Pepperdine University. In May 2018, I graduated with my master's in psychology. In 2014, I started my career in the field of mental health, working as a behavioral interventionist with children diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and other learning disabilities. And that set off the tone for the rest of my career. Currently, I am working as a client services manager, and I work with individuals diagnosed with developmental disabilities. I manage a caseload of 26 to 30 individuals. I work for a nonprofit organization called Tierra del Sol, and every day I try to live up to the mission of the organization, which is to help every single person that I work with become a valued, included, and contributing member of society, because everyone that I work with is not too different from my brother Yoel. My brother Yoel lives in Ethiopia, in Gondar. He's always lived there. At the age of 2, he became ill. At month 2, he became ill and he was hospitalized. And his condition required a surgical procedure, which resulted in nerve damage. As a result, he experienced paralysis his entire left side. And as he started to age, we noticed that he was not reaching the developmental milestones children typically meet. He had a cognitive delay, a speech delay, a motor delay, which all adds up to social, emotional, and behavioral delay. Because there is no resources or enough specialists in Ethiopia, Yoel is not receiving any form of therapeutic service as we speak. As he got older, he also started to have seizures. He is taking treatment for that. Although Yoel doesn't have an official diagnosis of a developmental condition, his conditions do point to that, his symptoms do point to that. This is my uncle Takale. In 2016, at age 57, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Prior to his official diagnosis, he was showing symptoms. However, we just thought it's just him aging, even though he was young. It wasn't until one afternoon he drove 40 minutes away from his home and he did not know how to get back. So he reached out to his sister, a family member gathered and went and got him. Once he was seen, assessed, and diagnosed, he started losing more of his ability to remember things. There was a lot of confusion. He had difficulty with his day-to-day routines. So in 2018, the family decided to have him go to Ethiopia for settlement. On May 20th, 2019, Takale passed away. And this is my uncle, Sina Demsash. In 1978, at age 17, he left Ethiopia as a refugee. And most of you may also have had a similar experience. Prior to leaving Ethiopia, he was imprisoned, tortured, and almost killed. He managed to make it to Sudan. He lived there for a couple years, then migrated to France, then relocated to Holland as an asylum seeker, and he was accepted. His older brother, Habtalul, was with Wendosen. Habtalul's petition was rejected as an asylum seeker in Holland, so he ended up going back to France, and his older brother managed to make it to America, and that was when we lost contact with Wendosen. Several years later, we found Wendosen's whereabouts. A man named Dawi helped him search for his family. We were all in Seattle, Washington, and we were connected with him over the phone. At that time, we learned that Wendosen was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he also suffered with drug addiction. In August 2010, my grandmother reunited with her son 32 years later. It was my first time meeting him. Excuse me. I remember when my grandmother would stare at him for moments at a time. She would whimper thankful prayers, sometimes lifting her head to the heavens, just as you can see in this photo. I tried to imagine how hard it must have been for her. He was no longer the young, handsome, slender, beautiful brown-skinned boy she once knew. He looked much older, even beyond his age. He was thin, frail, and his eyes filled with so much sadness. We stayed with him for a week. He told me beautiful stories about his wife and children while I anticipated to meet them. As the days went on, I learned there were no children or a wife to meet. That was his hallucination. Most days he was stable, coherent, and typical. And some days he spoke to me mixing the 4 languages he was exposed to: Dutch, English, Germany, and Amharic. Some days he also seemed detached from the present moment and expressed his fear of a recollection of his past memories, experiences while in Ethiopia as if they were happening currently. I saw a lot during the 7 days I was with Wendosen. Despite his challenges with hallucination, perception of reality, and how he connected with the world, Wendosen had a strong circle of support. He had a social worker, a psychiatrist, a therapist, friends, and now his family. He went to work every day, and he had therapy weekly, and he navigated his day-to-day task fairly independently. We met him every day after work, and he took us around town. We ate, we laughed, we even cried, but they were tears of healing and restoration. When I see my brother Yoel, my uncle Takala, and Wendosen, I see people who had and still have battles to fight, a story and an experience to share. People who deserve to feel a sense of victory in their own subjective world. People who deserve the opportunity and support to lead a stable and a productive life. People who need each and every one of us to see their ability instead of their disability. They need us to uplift them, encourage them, demonstrate what hope is to them. They need people who are going to value and include them. But if we're going to continue to see the illness instead of the individual, we will always miss them. There will always be shame, guilt, even pride, and there will always be stigma. I share their story with you because their battle is my family's battle. Their victory is ours as well. Their story is our story. And their story inspired my story. And I hope this will inspire you to speak freely about your experience and your story. As for me, I plan to spend the rest of my life being a voice and a light for people like my brother and uncles. But I alone cannot change the multi-generational transmitted behavior and pattern and belief of stigma. We need to progress as a community toward breaking these barriers and arrive at a solution. We need to talk honestly and openly. And there's no easy way to say this other than blankly. As a community, we need to end the stigmatizing, marginalizing views on mental illness and redefine, correct our long-lived, misguided perceptions. This has to start with you and I right here and right now. We already came together, and this is the beginning. We have to keep together, which is progress. But it's when we continue to work together, it becomes our success. Thank you for listening.